Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anita Chetty. I'm the Upper School Science Department Chair here at Harker, and I want to thank you for sticking around until the very end. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and it truly is a labor of love for me to work with my Women in STEM Club to put the symposium together. And seeing the youngsters here, as well as our seniors. You can see what a great science program we have here at Harker. And so this afternoon, what we hope to do is to share with you some information that will perhaps answer some of your questions and help guide you if you are a middle schooler or perhaps even younger, help guide you, inform you about the research opportunities, perhaps give you some direction as to what Harker has to offer and some suggestions as to how you might develop your own individual program. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'm just going to do the whole animation here. I want you to take a look at the amount of programming that we actually offer here. So I'm sort of representing the science department when I do this. In telling you that at the upper school, we actually offer multiple opportunities for students to engage in research. First of all, I want you to notice that the middle circle emphasizes learning as well as enrichment. So of course the learning is happening in the classroom. The enrichment is what we're offering outside the classroom. So here are some of the things that we offer specifically for enrichment. And by the way, what we've done is uploaded this PowerPoint through ConnectsMe, so you're able to access the entire PowerPoint. We also have this available up at the top. There's a link to our research hub, so if you access the parent portal, you'll be able to find this link as well. So the PowerPoint in its entirety is available to you right now through ConnectsMe if you wish to access that. So getting back to, obviously the academic program is very rich. We have an internship placement that we do for summer research opportunities. Remember that there are labs that will not allow you to work in their labs due to insurance issues if you are under the age of 16. But there are some colleges that actually do offer programs for younger students. So it just takes some time to do a little bit of research to find what works for you, but we can certainly assist with that. We have something called Open Lab, which is for students who are not able to do research during the regular academic day. We offer them the opportunity to do research outside of class time. It's almost like an extracurricular activity, and we have science teachers who supervise work in the research, in the actual research classroom. We offer research expeditions over the summer. We're starting to gear this more and more to sort of getting away more from doing very, very intense research. You can't really do that when you're out in the field, but to give students an opportunity to engage in research in environments that are unpredictable and to certainly get more of a global feel for what the issues are as far as the environment is concerned. And then the last one is we do have a research club. There is WISTAM, and there's the medical club. So there are various clubs also that allow students to either engage in research or to develop their interests. Chris, I think this is you. So introduce Mr. Chris Spenner, our research teacher and physics teacher.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So we do, as this slide indicates, we do support students who want to participate in various competitions. I'm going to say very little about that because these guys are going to talk about each competition more specifically later on. I do want to highlight a couple of things. One, another club that we've just added this year is Harker Horizon. You may have seen some flyers getting passed around today. It is our new scientific published, kind of online science publishing journal, run by students, peer-reviewed by students. It's just getting going this year, and we've got an active website going right now. Also, I want to highlight on the Research Hub, that link at the top right, which you can also get to through the parent portal. You'll find lots of information about all the competitions, all the programs. We update deadlines on there every year. That is accessible to parents and students. For students specifically, we also have an Athena site which has even more details and resources for doing science. And you're always welcome to come ask me questions. So the one last thing I'll say before we go into some more specifics is there's really no single recipe. I hope this is the theme that you'll take away from this session, is that there's no single way to go about doing research at Harker or in general. There's no particular time you have to start. There's no single path to follow. You're going to hear a few different stories today. So there's lots of bullet points on these slides, but if you take away one thing, I hope that's one of the big things you walk away with.
And I'd like to introduce Samali Sahoo to you, who is a dear student of mine, a senior off to UPenn. But I remember Samali when she was just a youngster, a freshman, fumbling around in the lab, not really knowing what she wanted to do, and look where she is now. So we thought she'd be a great example for you to describe the 4-year experience. You can just go ahead and sit right there and stand up there, whatever you like.
All right, so basically I'm going to talk about my 4-year experience, essentially what I did all throughout high school, but the one thing about this is just what I did. This is an overview of, what I was interested in, but many people have different paths, and I'll get into that in the next slide. But essentially, I started off in 9th grade doing projects in Open Lab, which is an opportunity at Harker where you can work with Mr. Spenner or any other faculty in the science department that you can just essentially drive your own project. And I also had an upper school mentor who was a junior at that time, who helped me, create a poster in kind of bringing in the elements of the scientific method together. And then in 10th grade, I continued doing stuff with Open Lab and entered in Synopsis also and presented my poster there. And then when it gets more interesting, in junior year, the summer before junior year, I began working at a lab in Stanford and did one project there. And through that, I got invited to continue my research there throughout the school year. So on Fridays, instead of, partying with my friends, I went to go do research till late at night, and that was very enjoyable for me personally. Then I got really more experience on doing formalized research. And then I learned about doing lab meetings and working in like a professional environment also. And then the summer before senior year, I attended another program at Stony Brook. And from that, I worked with my PI to, in the fall, actually write a paper that I submitted to Siemens and Intel. Also, one thing that I forgot, I also registered in the advanced research class, which really helped me to hone in my technical paper with Mr. Spenner. The one thing that I didn't do was do a research methods class, which I would really recommend if you don't have that much experience in the lab, especially like sophomores and juniors who maybe haven't done Open Lab. That's a really good option too. And then starting on research at Harker, as I said, or as Ms. Chetty said earlier, really depends on your age and what field you're interested in. For example, like if you do something in chemistry, like they're not going to let you explode different, compounds if you're like 12 years old. But depending on that, you can do what you're interested in. And then also writing a technical paper, there may be like lab restrictions and patents and trademarks of certain labs that don't allow you to write a technical paper for Intel or Siemens or whichever. So that's not always consistent, so you should have that in mind, and that not all research follows the same path. Lastly, I think all research serves as a mechanism to grow. I started off doing very elementary research, like that, may seem inconsequential, but it led me to performing much more interesting research in the future and helped me to get those internships later on.
I've already mentioned this, but I just want to say one more thing that I think is personally very important. There's a lot of personal growth that I've observed in students by going on some of these research expeditions that we've gone on to the Galapagos Islands, Costa Rica, Tanzania, the Arctic. Harker always trying to sort of push our limits in terms of where we will go. It's important for me to state to you parents that sometimes there is a great deal to be learned on these trips, that you may have a child, either currently or one that's younger, that may be totally fascinated with the world and maybe a very curious child, but that is not necessarily interested in being in a research lab and doing some of the sophisticated work that some of our students are going to describe. There are different ways that we can learn, and I think there are different areas of a child that can be developed. And this is the only reason why, because we want to develop good global citizens, this is the only reason why I'm sort of including this, that this is something else that we offer, another opportunity for other students who may or may not be interested in doing intense laboratory research. This is another type of research for you to consider. Chris?
Yeah, so Samali already mentioned the research classes. I'll go through it really quickly. Research methods is a one-year class where the first semester is basic skills. The second semester, students do what I would call kind of a basic project because you don't have time to do anything beyond that in the normal school day. And then the advanced research class is a one-semester class, but you can take it as often as you want because it is primarily independent study. The students define their own goals. But both classes, I would say, emphasize building of community as well, right? Having students work together towards similar goals helps. Anybody who, for the research methods class, I would say if you're not even sure that you want to do research long-term, you just want to find out what it's like, it's a good class for you. Or all the way up to if you think you want to try to do an internship, but you haven't had a lot of training yet, it can be a good class for you. And the advanced class is primarily for students who have already done an internship, have already done a significant project, and need that time during the school day to take it further. When to enroll, anywhere from sophomore through senior year. Freshmen don't really have room in the schedule for it. But it's kind of up to you. I have had sophomores through seniors in both classes, so anytime is fine.
And I'll ask Samali again to comment on conducting research at Harker Labs specifically. So we call, as you might have noticed, we call our science department as well as our research lab Harker Labs. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so yeah, the first point is basically that it's never too late to start research in the sense that you can really approach any faculty member, especially Mr. Spenner, for doing research projects, and they really just help you formalize your research idea, which I think is one of the hardest parts of conducting your individualized research, and that, you know, whenever you approach them, they're very open to that. And one easy way to approach them is like if you have like a biology teacher or a chemistry teacher and you're doing a lab that you find interesting, you can really expand on that, and that's like a good starting point. And then in terms of resources, Mr. Spenner kind of discussed the research classes, the methods class and the advanced class. And then Open Lab is basically an opportunity in which you can go to Mr. Spenner's room after school and conduct your, wet lab research, or I guess you can also get advice after school from other faculty on non-wet lab experiments also. And so that's there, and I believe you can also go during lunch, and that was something that I did a lot freshman and sophomore year. And then for Siemens and Intel, once again, the faculty are very helpful in that they will edit your paper, and oftentimes they have a lot of expertise in the field, depending on either, what they wrote for their own theses in university or even what they have seen from past candidates. And Harker has a lot of Intel and Siemens finalists and stuff, so they can really guide you in that. And in terms of my personal experiences with pitfalls, like I've had many, even when doing formalized research. For example, this past summer I was dealing with equipment that would occasionally break like all the time, and I would have to wait for up to 14 hours to wait for it to be fixed. And I kind of also didn't know what was going on at the same time because everything was crumbling down. But in the end, I had to do significant research in just reading tons and tons of articles and deciding what I would do next with my project. And I think research in that sense isn't just about saying you have a question, slapping two things together, and saying that you got a conclusion, but rather you will struggle through it, and kind of coming out of that is the real experience of research that I personally really enjoyed. So, yeah.
So now that you know a little bit about the academic programming and the research opportunities offered directly by Harker, we'd like to switch over to the opportunities that are available as research internships in other locations. So before we do that, let's go ahead and define what we mean by an internship. There are three different kinds of internships as we see it. The first one is it's not really an internship. So when you go online and you're researching for summer programs, what you'll see is that there are various colleges that are offering more academically based programs. So you need to make a decision on whether you want to take a course, which may have some lab work, but it's not really research. Or maybe that is really what you want. You want to have sort of a college experience. You want to stay in a dorm and take some classes. That's not a research internship. And there are many that are offered. And sometimes they're even called that, but they're really not an internship. So when you're doing your research, make sure you look to see how much time is actually going to be given to you in the lab. And will you be supervised by someone, a grad student, probably not a PI, but someone who's going to actually guide you and support you in your research, and that you'll get the opportunity to do something that is independent. That's what we call a research internship. There's another one called a clinical internship that we've offered in the past. We've had a little bit of trouble coordinating that this year, but I'll continue to try to work on that. The clinical internship is for students who are interested in medicine, and what they want to do is to shadow a doctor, but it's not a informal situation. So together with a doctor at Kaiser, I put together a very formal program that was comprised of lectures as well as shadowing opportunities throughout various clinics. We hope to resurrect that. But you may come across something like that. That's not a research internship either, because you're not collecting data, you're not going to write a paper. So I guess I'm defining these for you because you're going to come across various programs and you're not going to know what each one is. So make sure you read carefully at the descriptions. So I think I've sort of gone ahead and defined, sort of delineated each of them. But really, if you're looking for a summer research internship, what you should be looking for is anywhere between a minimum of 5 and somewhere around 10 weeks of every day going to the research lab. This could be an opportunity for you to actually stay in a dorm. It might be part of their summer program that they're offering, but you would definitely be affiliated with a lab there where you will work under the guidance of a mentor. You'll have an independent research project. There may be a variety of other activities they might offer, so it may be sort of like a summer camp, quote unquote, type of setting, but really research is the focus. You have to be very careful when you engage in a research internship. Our students may explain that to you. Right off the bat, at the very beginning, you need to have a conversation with the scientist who's mentoring you to ask, can I use this data to write a paper? Can I use this data to enter a competition? You need to ask that before you even accept, because it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is simply to have the experience and it's okay with you not to write a paper, then it doesn't matter. But you would hate to find out at the very end, and this has happened to some Harker students, where at the very end of their summer internship, they had not asked before, and maybe it was because they didn't think they were going to collect enough data. It's hard to say. But at the end of the summer, they wanted to write a Siemens or Intel paper, and they were denied that opportunity because the researcher was currently working on a very, very large project, of which this project was a subset. And any data collected was going to go towards that larger paper. So you need to make sure you've had the conversation up front, and I think some of our students may emphasize that. So now I bet what's really burning in your mind is, well, how do I get a research internship? So I'm going to ask Evani and Radiya-Dixit to answer that question, and she is one of our Siemens finalist, so she certainly knows the answer. Go ahead.
So there are several ways in which you can get an internship over the summer, and one way is to go through a structured program. And so often for these, you have to give teacher recommendations, a resume, submit essays, and so it's really good to plan these out early and get organized. And there are a lot of deadlines that vary, so it's good to, I think on the website they have the list of the deadlines as well as the research internships. So it's good to plan ahead for those and make sure that you are reaching out to your teachers in advance. And so yeah, these are usually due around between January and March. So another option is to reach out to professors. So there are a lot of like local universities you can reach out to, and it's good to send a personalized email to the professor. So try to find an area that you're interested in, and then look into maybe papers that a specific professor has written, and then in that email you can maybe reference one of those papers and ask a particular question about that, or maybe give project ideas. So it's good to reach out to a lot of professors and be specific when you reach out to a particular professor, because you want to show that you're interested in something that they're doing and how, and ask them whether you can join their lab and work under them. Next slide. So in terms of reaching out to professors, it's good to reach out to a lot of professors because some of them may not reply. Also, you can reach out to postdocs and assistant professors because they are usually more likely to reply since they're not as busy, and also they may have more time to mentor you. And then finally, there are also programs, internship programs, where you can go through Harker. So for these, you would also be submitting possibly teacher recommendations, essays, a resume. So again, just plan in advance and make sure that you look out for the deadlines that are coming.
I just want to emphasize the ones that are offered by Harker. These are ones where the mentor has asked us to do sort of the first cut. In other words, what they want to do is they want to reduce the pool of students. And we know our students better than the mentor does. So what they'll do is if we have 50 students apply, then they may ask us to narrow that down to the top 25. And so we have a selection process that we use. But two areas that are very important to us when we're doing the selection. The first one is, can we see a passion for research as evidenced in the classroom? Is this student curious and constantly asking questions, going an extra mile? The second one is the ability to write a paper, and we look at that by looking at lab reports and how well the student is able to communicate their findings. So now I'm going to take a look. So let's say you got the internship, then what does that internship experience look like and how to maximize that experience? And I'm going to ask Jonathan to answer that question.
So essentially, an internship experience is really not like what you can find in a typical classroom, because you're going to be always faced with questions which might not have an answer. And you're going to, and so that always puts students out of our comfort zones. So the best way to get to deal with this is by constantly asking questions and making maximum use of the resources available to you. That can be your mentor when he or she is available. That can be the postdocs and grad students in the lab. That can be even fellow high school students in the lab if there are also others interning there. So the key to getting the most out of your lab experience is to take advantage of this, because the reason you're in a lab is to learn from these people. And if you can do that, then you'll have a great experience and you'll end up with a really good project. As Ms. Chetty mentioned, it's important to clarify your expectations versus what your mentor wants at the start. Specifically, a lot of competitions have very strict deadlines, and I think we'll be covering that in subsequent slides. But a lot of projects have very strict timelines for research competitions. So you want to be make sure that those align with what your mentor is expecting that you do, and so that there's no conflict. And also, you want to be open to help from others. I can't stress this enough, because you're going to be dealing with people with like terminal degrees who have literally have a life's worth of experience in their respective fields, and that's going to be a wealth of information that you need to be able to mine in the lab. And one final thing is that you should keep a detailed record of what you do in the lab setting. This can vary for different labs and different projects. Different labs might have different requirements, and for instance, a computational biology lab might not have as much as, say, a wet lab. But in any case, it's very important to note down what you did so that you can figure out where things went wrong and where things went right. And also because if you plan to submit to research competitions later on, a lot of those, like synopsis, require documentation in the form of a lab notebook or something similar of what you did.
And now to elaborate further on the internship experience, I'll ask Vineet Kosaraju to comment on some of the things Jonathan talked about, but expanding a little bit further on the experience.
Yeah, so as Jonathan mentioned, an internship isn't really like your traditional high school classroom experience. It might not be what you expect at all. One important thing to note is that a large portion of the internship is being able to work with your mentor and to work with all of the different members of your lab, and not being afraid to ask questions, just basically soaking up all the available information that you have, all the resources you have at an internship for your project. It's a lot of learning. I know at Harker we have a ton of bright kids. Maybe you guys aren't used to asking questions. I know I wasn't. An internship is definitely going to be a different experience. It's going to be something where you're kind of thrown into the mix, and it's going to be a little bit challenging, but you're going to learn a lot through the process. One really important part of that is you want to make sure you cultivate relationships with your mentor, with your PI, and you do some networking. It's kind of a phrase that's thrown around a lot. What we mean by that is you want to make sure you form these contacts with the people you work at your lab, find out what they're doing. Maybe something's interesting, maybe it's something you haven't thought about before. A, it'll give you a lot of ideas for what you can explore in your own research, and B, it'll also help you later in the road for, say, college applications, or later when you're in college, if you want to do research again, when you want to go back to a lab, you can always reach back to those contacts. What to do when things go wrong. So unfortunately, not all internships are perfect. There are instances where things might go wrong. So for example, your mentor might be out of town for a month and you had no idea that was going to happen, and now you're kind of clueless. That's happened before. Some other things that might happen. You've been assigned a partner and you don't really get along with the partner. Your partner's not really pulling their weight. They're not doing any of the work. That could also happen. So at an internship, communication is really key. What you want to do anytime you get into a situation that might seem troubling or something you're not particularly happy about, make sure to tell your parents and an adult you trust. And also through these internships, there's generally some kind of administrator who can help you, whether that's the PI of your lab, if you're having issues with your mentor, or if you're going through a formal internship experience, then there's generally an administrator who can help you out with the issue and can resolve it for you. So again, make sure to reach out to all your contacts, make sure to participate in a little bit of networking, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay, so when the internship is over and you've collected your data and you're thinking about Siemens, Intel, or maybe writing a paper that your researcher has suggested that you submit to a conference, what do you do about that? So our next topic is paper and presentations. And so David Zhu, I'll get you to talk about that. David, the other part of the Evani, David finalist, Siemens finalist duo. Go ahead.
All right, so one of the most useful tips that I can give you for writing the technical paper is to begin early. Personally, I began writing my paper pretty much right after I had concluded with most of my research. There's no reason to wait after you're done with your research for like a couple months and then start writing your paper as a competition is coming up or something like that. It's always great to write your research when write the paper when it's still fresh in your mind, and you can even begin writing the paper before you are completely finished with all of your results. Because even when you're writing your paper, you're pretty much putting all your thoughts onto one document, and along the way you can encounter, hey, maybe there's something else I could have tried, and you can kind of go back to your research and do it simultaneously. And that's never a bad thing, because there's always more that you can do, and if you can find more that will help with your research along the way when you're writing the paper, it's always a good thing. Let's see. Also, yes, so writing your paper early is also really helpful for those people who you want to help write with your paper with. A lot of the people like the Harker teachers or your mentor, they're all very busy, and it's very unfair to them if you send them a 20-page paper 3 days before it's due and say, hey, can you read it over for me and fix any problems that you find? It's always great to submit it 2, maybe 3 weeks beforehand, or even more if you can. And the earlier the better, because there are going to be other people who are also requesting a Harker teacher like Mr. Spenner or any of the Harker science teachers that will gladly read your paper for you. And earlier is always better for them because they will have more free time and not be clustered by the many other papers that will be submitted. Last thing, LaTeX is always a good thing to learn. It'll make your report look better. It's not necessary, but if you're willing for the challenge to make your paper look better, it's always a good thing. So yeah, you can definitely go out of order. So a very typical procedure for writing your paper is starting with an introduction, then like maybe a goal or hypothesis, then you're moving on to your methods, discussion, and conclusion. Sometimes when you hit your conclusions or discussion section, you'll realize that there's something that's missing. And you can always go back to your introduction or your methods section, fix anything maybe go back to your actual research itself, and you can always go back and fix that. And yeah, the two most important parts of the research paper is conveying what you did and why the person should care about it. The paper isn't really some big onerous task. It's actually your opportunity to share with the people the work that you've done. Because you can do the project, but if you don't write up a paper, then no one will ever really find out what you've done. So this is your opportunity to showcase what you've done and why you think it's important and why people should care about it.
I just want to add that in May of this year and every year, we actually hold a meeting asking students who are interested in doing Siemens or Intel to attend this meeting, and we give them a lot of guidelines. And then throughout the summer, if there's any updates or anything, I will send them an email. So the students have to come to this meeting. They have to give me their email address so that I can put them on the mailing list. Then in August, Mr. Spenner and I run we used to call it a workshop, but it's more of an information session now, just sort of helping students with giving them some guidance on their technical papers. And so usually we've found the last couple of years that they haven't really started their paper in August, but what we've done is offered advice and support. Then we follow that up with what David was saying. We actually do have Harker teachers, science teachers, that volunteer to review papers. And we have a very structured sort of set target dates that allow the teacher enough time to offer feedback. And many of the teachers want to meet with the student afterwards and review what their recommendations are. So it is a wonderful service that the science department provides that you can certainly take advantage of. So now we're going to move on to the next part of sharing your data. Apart from a paper, you can also present an oral presentation, and you may have to do both. So Vineet, back to you.
All right, so one really important part of science research is this idea of an oral presentation. If you've done synopsis before, you already know this idea. It's done pretty much everywhere in research, from the high school experience to undergrad, graduate school. The basic idea is you always want to consider your audience. So depending on who you're going to be talking to, you want to structure your oral presentation differently each time. Let's say you're talking to a few professors and some PhD students, you might want to make it somewhat more technical than if you were just talking to the general audience. So it's very important to consider who your audience is going to be whenever making an oral presentation. One really important part of the oral presentation is instead of inundating your audience with a lot of technical jargon or a lot of details, you want to make sure that your presentation is as clear as possible. And you want to really follow the idea of figures first and data first, rather than dealing with all these new terms that you have to define or all this additional background info that you might have to introduce. So you always want to lead with this idea that you want to think about what were your results and what is the applications of those results. Also, generally, whenever you're doing an oral presentation, you might have a poster right next to you, especially if you've done synopsis. You know the drill where you have a poster and you give a presentation at the same time. This poster should be a guideline for how you're going to do your talk, for how you're going to give your oral presentation, but it should not at all be exactly the same as your talk. It should just be a guideline, that's it. And again, focus on your audience and think about adjusting the length and the depth of the material that you talk about. Some other tips that you might want to consider: if you're doing an oral presentation, make sure you focus on the relevance and the application of your research. This is something that other scientists are going to be especially excited about. What are the applications of your research to my field? That's a question that's going to appear a lot. So it's something you want to think about beforehand. And also definitely practice as much as you can. Practice with your friends, your teachers. The more you practice, the better you're going to get, and it's also going to be more likely that you can answer all the questions and that you know the different kinds of audiences that you might have.
So now you've done the internship, you've done the research, and you've communicated your findings. For Mr. Spenner and I, we think you're pretty well done, but we know that students are very interested, and their parents too, in this. And so our talk would not be complete if we did not talk about research competitions. So we're going to start out by talking about synopsis, one that is it wants to update Java right now. Remind me later. Okay.
So while we get the slide back, synopsis is the Santa Clara County Science Fair. It leads to the California State Science Fair if you do well. If you do really well, like some of our students have done, then you go to ISEF, which is the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair. It's really, to me, the benefit, yes, it's great if you get the recognition, but you can never count on that. You never know exactly which judges you'll get or what they'll be looking for. So I think the healthiest way to approach it is to say, well, this is a chance for me to talk to people about my project, right? Like Vineet was saying, it's a chance to practice. So if you approach it from that perspective, prepare, think about your audience, think about what you can get out of it. Sometimes the judges have expertise that you can learn from. I'd say approach it from that perspective. You can never count on getting awards. Synopsis in particular does require faculty sponsorship from a Harker teacher if you're attending Harker. My biggest piece of advice is don't wait. Don't wait to start your project, and don't wait to talk to a teacher before you start your project about getting sponsorship. Especially incoming freshmen tend to be unaware. It's hard to, there's so much new stuff coming at you, it's hard to keep track of all the deadlines. We have very early deadlines for synopsis. So when you come in freshman year, you don't want to wait. In fact, ideally, you would start during the summer or even earlier developing ideas for what kind of project you want to do. If you know you're coming to Harker as a freshman, then contact me during the summer and tell me if you have any ideas that you want to run by me. I can help you out.
Students, I want to really emphasize the word dates and deadlines, especially if you're in middle school right now. One of the things you need to understand is there is a tremendous amount of interest in research, and we have to make sure that we share our resources adequately with all of our students. Mr. Spenner has deadlines and guidelines. If there's one thing that I can stress over and over to you, you must adhere to those. That's really, really important. You don't want to be disappointed. So synopsis is the gateway to Intel ISEF, and someone told me, and I have no data, but that Harker has 5 out of 8?
5 out of 12. 12, yeah.
Oh, 5 out of 12. Okay.
Still
Going to Intel ISEF, which I think is pretty high for us.
Yes.
Yes. And so, Jonathan, that's your slide.
Okay. So ISEF stands for International Science and Engineering Fair. It's the largest and most prestigious science fair in the world for high school students. Over 1,700 students participated last year from over 70 countries. And essentially, there's really no parallel to this in that because you have students from all over the world in dozens of fields coming together to discuss their research, to interact with each other, to network, as Vineet said, and really it's a unique experience. So essentially, if you want to start thinking about it, it's what it is a larger version of Synopsis at the very basic level. You still have a poster, and you still present it to judges. But the judges at ISEF are all extremely qualified. Almost all of them have terminal degrees in their fields. There's also professors, tenured professors that judge it. There are professionals, there are industry specialists in their fields who come and volunteer their time to judge at ISEF. And also another thing is I can't stress enough the word international in ISEF. You'll be interacting with students from all over the world. The person next to us last year was a senior in Egypt with a project in machine learning and computational biology. The person to the right of us was from Georgia in the southern United States. And it's a gathering from all around the world, and essentially a gigantic forum for science. And participating in it is really an unparalleled experience and a really transformative one as well. I think that since Synopsis only has a quota of 12 students it can send to this each year, it's a highly selective process, but at the same time, it's worth going to, and it's worth trying for at Synopsis because you never know, and if you do get it, it'll be one of the best experiences of your entire life.
Now we're going to talk about a competition that many of you may not know about, and it's one that I think is truly an incredible experience because it's done throughout the year. The students work as a collaborative team, and it's done right here at Harker. So I'll let Jessica Zhu, senior, describe this to you. It's really an astounding program, and I really think you should look into it.
So I think USYPT is a sort of research experience unlike the other traditional forms of research in the sense that there is only one deadline, the tournament. So however you want to pace your research is entirely up to you. If you want to do it all in the last week, go ahead. So in this research, well, first of all, it basically is for students who have a passion for physics. So every year there are 4 problems that are released. They are unique but non-trivial. They're things that you would not find in your traditional textbooks. And so what happens is that these students are completely on their own, basically. They have to come up with their own plan for deriving a theory and creating an experiment and getting all the materials for those experiments to create a presentation. And what happens at the tournament is that we have sort of debate-style physics fights, as they like to say. So you have to be able to defend your own research as well as oppose another team's research, meaning that you have to ask them questions, you have to ask them about whether or not they understand their research completely. And so one thing I've learned through this experience is that it's often better to have simpler theories and more clear experiments, but understand them fully rather than just plastering your slides with complex formulas that you don't really understand. Because in the end, during the Q&A session, both by your opposition and by physics professors, it'll come to light if you don't really understand what you're saying. Harker, every year we have 4 people on our team. They are the presenters. However, we can have like an unlimited number of students who are working on the problems. As well, even though students tend to only work on one problem, this is a very collaborative team effort because in the Q&A session, team members are allowed to help each other out by writing on Post-its and sending them. And Harker is very well known at the tournament for going through stacks of Post-its like no other team does. Which is something I think is really great because that shows that we work as a team, that we understand each other's problems as well. We listen to each other practice, and we research together.
Another lesser-known competition is called the JSHS, the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. There is no humanities in this symposium anymore. It was started originally, I think, by the U.S. Navy, and the Northern Division, Amy, if I'm correct, it does not exist currently. It's the Southern one that we continue to compete with. They're very kind to let us do that, and Amy went to the Nationals this year. So go ahead, Amy.
So JSHS is another research competition. It's for individual projects. And so the process from previous years is a little bit different in that there's no longer a Harker screening. There used to be that only a certain number of people could participate in the first round of JSHS, but that is no longer the case. So to participate, all you have to do is submit a 5 to 20 page research paper, and then that is the preliminary round. If you are selected to participate in regional semifinals, that is the round where you'll need to prepare a 12-minute presentation and also a PowerPoint. And this you'll be presenting in front of a panel of judges, and then they'll follow up with a 3-minute Q&A session. So all of this is conducted through telecom. As Ms. Chetty said, there is currently no host for the Northern California JSHS region, so everything was conducted through Southern California JSHS coordinators this year and last year. And so from regional semifinals, 5 regional finalists get selected. The first and second place winners attend nationals as oral presenters, and the other 3 attend nationals as poster presenters. So at National Symposium, aside from competing, there are also panels, exhibitions, and demonstrations to look forward to.
And now on to, just before nap time, now on to the ones that you know about a little bit more, of course, a little more famous, the Siemens Competition, and we'll have David Zhu talk about that.
All right, so the Siemens Competition is a competition hosted by the Siemens Foundation. Typically, teams of up to 3 are allowed, and individual submissions are allowed if the individual is a senior. The deadline for the first round is typically mid to late September, and the first round, the only requirement is really just submitting your formal research paper of up to 20 pages. After that, a list of semifinalists is selected, and from those semifinalists, a more exclusive list of regional finalists, about 5 projects per region, are selected for the regional round. And then in that round, you're required to make a poster and also give an oral presentation with a PowerPoint slides, and the winner of the regional round advances to the national competition, 1 team and 1 individual, and at the national competition, the procedure is essentially repeated in front of a much stronger, typically, panel of judges to select the national rankings. So the biggest thing about the Siemens competition is that it's very early in the year. It's within a month of school starting, so the deadlines come on to you really, really, really fast. Of course, that would mean that you would have to start your research in the summer. There's no way you can begin it after school starts. And ideally, the research paper would be complete or near complete by the time school starts. That way, when you start getting loaded down with your homework assignments, you don't have to worry about writing a 20-page technical paper at the same time. So I think that's one of the most important things for the Siemens competition, just getting your paper done before school starts. Another thing is this year they made a transition to make the entire process online. So it's pretty important just to read the rules, make sure that you don't submit it in the last 5 minutes in case a technical difficulty occurs. But other than that, it's just really keeping up with the deadlines and reading over the rules.
The other thing about Siemens to remember is that you can do this as a younger student, so you can submit to Siemens in the 9th grade as long as it's a group project. And we'll discuss all of that with students at a later time. The Intel STS, Jonathan?
Okay. So Intel STS is a competition that is open to seniors only and in individual products only. And perhaps the biggest difference between Intel and, say, Siemens is that Intel STS is more of an application than a competition. It's, aside from a technical paper, the Intel STS application also includes 6 essays, as well as numerous short answers, as well as teacher recommendations, lab recommendations, and possibly outside recommendations. So essentially, the best way to think of the Intel application is as a miniaturized, or perhaps not even miniaturized, as a college application. It's really important to not only keep up with the paper, of course, but also to treat those other components well and finish them well in advance. So the timeline for Intel is a bit later than that of Siemens. It's due every year in mid-November, and it's online submission, like Siemens. So the components are twofold. First is a technical paper. And notably, this paper can be a bit, or actually no, significantly longer than that of Siemens. It's 21 pages, I believe, or something, or 20 or 21 pages, as opposed to 18, and the font can be smaller. So you can, and plus that coupled with the larger time window means that you can incorporate a significant amount of research between Siemens and Intel, and that's what I did for my project, for instance. Another aspect of the technical paper is that other than that, it's essentially similar to Siemens in that it's read by a panel of very, very proficient judges, who often professors, who will then select the semifinalists, 300 of them, and then the finalists. So the second part of the application lies in the short essays and the short answers I mentioned earlier. These are really designed to allow you a space to elaborate on why you like research, why you pursue your project, why you love science. And it's really hard to force these. Like, you have to let them come genuinely from what you believe. That's probably the best tip I can give you for how to approach them. In terms of completion, these essays take often a significant amount of time to complete. And also, if you're a senior, you're usually finishing your first round of like early applications and or starting your regular applications at the same time that you're writing this Intel application. So it's very important to just keep up with the deadlines, keep up with the dates, and just make sure, as David said, not to submit it 5 minutes before the deadline. So after the initial submission, you wait, and in early January, the 300 semifinalists are announced. After that, the semifinalists don't have any additional competition duties, but after that comes a stage when the 40 finalists are announced at the end of January. And these 40 finalists undergo a process in which they have to prepare posters. They have to prepare for Q&A sessions with the judges, and in mid-March, the 40 finalists are flown to DC, where they compete in a week-long competition at the STS in downtown DC. And essentially, what that competition consists of is twofold. One is again, presenting your project in the form of a poster to the judges and answering their questions. But another component is a series of judging interview questions. Now, these questions are very open-ended, and often they're completely outside of your field. And there's really no way to prepare for them other than through the 12 years of science education that you've had. And again, this is why it's a science talent search rather than, say, a research competition, is that they're looking for scientific proficiency beyond your research paper, which is of course important, but even beyond that, you have to be able to think scientifically, to reason through problems you've never seen before, open-ended ones that might not have a solution at all. And so based on a combination of your poster presentation and and the judging interviews that you undergo, the winner is determined. And it's besides the competition itself, the Intel also brings in numerous speakers. This year they brought in Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, and as well as alumni and notable scientists, including Nobel Prize winners, to talk to us. And so it's again a really great experience, and I recommend that you all go for it. If you're doing Siemens, you already have that base of a technical paper, and it's really a rich and rewarding experience, no matter what happens in the end.
Okay, so now you've heard from the teachers, you've heard from these accomplished students, and I think that we would have missed out on an opportunity if we did not ask a Harker parent who's gone through this process to actually describe to all the parents in our audience what we see your role and what she sees as her role, and we hope that that will also be very informative. So Samali's mom, Lipika sir, thank you so much for being here, and we'd like you to offer your words of wisdom to your fellow Harker parents.
Sure. First, I will start with a little bit of background of Samali, and you can ask me your questions later. So she recently got accepted in a dual degree program at University of Pennsylvania, where she'll get an economics degree from the Wharton Business School, and also she'll get a neuroscience degree from the College of Science. She worked on 3 research internships during high school, and 2 of them she did at a Stanford neuroscience lab, and she did that after the end of 10th grade, and she continued that for a year, and that's where actually she got interested in neuroscience. And the 3rd internship she did at the end of 11th grade, and she did that at Stony Brook, New York, and during the summer, and she did that in biotech. She had to spend a lot of hours applying for research internships, and once she got selected, she had to spend many hours doing the actual research. But it made sense for her because she was really interested in those fields. First and foremost, research takes a lot of time, and during high school the time is really limited, so it needs to be really judiciously sliced. So if the kids are not interested in research, they shouldn't really be signing up. That's number one. So for example, if a kid is interested in piano and is really good at it, we'll also get into good college. Around 40 to 50% of the Harker kids do research internship, and around 50% of the Harker kids who get into the top schools actually do not have any formal background in research. So it's really not a necessary condition to get into good school. And second point is that true research takes years, and our kids may not have adequate test results to write a paper in Siemens, Intel, or Synopsys competition. If they don't have enough test data, and if they cannot write the paper, that doesn't mean they really fail. So we as parents need to understand that, and we need to explain that to our kids. Kids who get prizes in competitions, they get into top schools. Kids who do not get prizes in competition also get into top schools. It's really not a deciding factor. But if a kid is interested in the subject, like Samali, she was interested in neuroscience, then they can decide what they want to study in college. But for some others, it may be just a waste of time. For example, if a kid wants to be a fiction novelist and has to do an internship in electrical engineering, he may not be motivated to do so. And the final point is that we as parents need to encourage our kids if they want to do research internship, but we should not write the paper for them. We should drive them to the research labs. We should motivate them. We should support them however we can, but we should not really help them writing the paper. And finally, kids should really do what they're passionate about. And research internship is really not the way to get into the best schools. If they follow their passion, that will be the differentiating factor in their college applications.
Thank you. And that concludes our presentation this afternoon. We can take a few questions. We believe that we have probably covered it all. And so if you have 1 or 2 questions, we can take them. Otherwise, if you afterwards feel like you have a question, you can always email me. Do we have any questions from the floor? well, then I think we did a pretty good job. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next year at the next Research Symposium. Thank you so much.